The number one word Carl Jung says triggers a man's ego. It's probably not even an insult. It doesn't sound like a critique. But according to the legendary psychologist Carl Jung, this specific word has the unique power to cut straight through the mask he shows the world and tap into a deep, hidden well of insecurity. Now, understanding this isn't about learning to manipulate someone. It's exactly the opposite. It's about gaining a real understanding of the male psyche, which can lead to better communication, healthier relationships, and for men, a genuine path to deeper self-awareness. Stick around because we're about to reveal that number one word. To really grasp why this one word has such a profound effect, we need to take a quick dive into some of Carl Jung's most fascinating ideas. Think of it like getting a user manual for the human psyche. It helps explain why we react the ways we do, often without even realizing it. We all, every single one of us, wear a mask out in the world. Jung called this the persona. It's not about being fake. It's the version of yourself you present at work, the one you are with your friends, the one you are on a first date. It's the social you, the one that knows how to fit in and meet expectations. It's a necessary part of life, like choosing an outfit for the day. But it's crucial to remember that the mask is not the whole person behind it. Beneath that mask lies what Jung called the ego. This is your conscious sense of self, your I. It's the part of you that feels like you, the center of your conscious awareness, your thoughts, feelings, and memories that you readily identify with. Your ego is the storyteller of your life, crafting the narrative of who you are. It holds tightly to this identity, this idea of itself as a certain kind of person, competent, kind, strong, funny. This sense of self is precious, and it works very hard to maintain its stability and coherence. But then, Jung tells us, there is a much larger, hidden part of ourselves that the ego tries to ignore or lock away, the shadow. The shadow is the repository for everything we are, but cannot bear to be. It contains the traits, desires, impulses, and weaknesses that we, or our families, cultures, and societies, have deemed unacceptable, embarrassing, or shameful. If your ego story is, "I am a generous person," your shadow might hold your secret selfishness. If your identity is, "I am strong," your shadow contains all your perceived weakness and vulnerability. We stuff these parts down into the darkness of our unconscious because they are too threatening to our carefully constructed sense of self. The fascinating and paradoxical thing about the shadow is that while it holds our darkest stuff, it also holds incredible untapped potential and creativity, parts of us we've been too afraid to claim. This sets the stage for a constant, quiet tension within us. The ego wants to maintain its positive self-image, and the shadow holds the exact material that could shatter that image. So what happens when that material threatens to surface? That's where the concept of a trigger comes in. A psychological trigger is anything, a word, a situation, a look, that bypasses our defenses and pokes directly at a raw, unintegrated part of our shadow. It's like someone unknowingly shining a flashlight into the basement we've spent years keeping locked. The ego, feeling its entire identity is under attack, doesn't respond with curiosity. It responds with a defensive reaction, instantaneously and fiercely. It might get angry to reassert power, it might withdraw to hide the exposed wound, or it might deflect and blame to shift the focus. This isn't a logical response. It's a psychological immune system kicking in, a desperate attempt to protect the fragile story of who we believe ourselves to be. So, after understanding that framework, what is that one word? It's likely not the word you're first imagining. It's not an outright insult like stupid, and it's not even the direct label of failure, though that comes close. Those words certainly sting, but they often attack a specific action or outcome. The word we're talking about strikes at something far deeper and more fundamental to a man's core sense of self. It's a word that, when heard or even subtly implied, feels like an existential threat to the very story he tells about who he is. The word is weak. Now, it's crucial to understand that this isn't just about the literal, dictionary word itself being spoken aloud. In fact, it's rarely that blatant. The power lies in the concept, the implication, the underlying message that is felt, whether it was intended or not. It's any comment, situation, or even a look that conveys he is not strong enough, not capable enough, not in control, or lacks resilience. It's the accusation, direct or indirect, of a fundamental lack of inner fortitude. For many men, whose identity is often built upon a foundation of being a protector, a provider, and a pillar of strength, this concept is the ultimate invalidation. It doesn't just criticize what he does, it threatens who he believes he is. This taps directly into that Jungian model we just explored. For a man who has built a persona around competence and strength, any suggestion of weakness is not just an insult, it's a direct assault on his ego's stability. It violently drags the contents of his shadow, all his hidden insecurities, his deepest fears of inadequacy, his unacknowledged vulnerabilities, right into the bright light of consciousness. His reaction, therefore, is rarely a calm, considered response. It is a primal, defensive ego reflex. He isn't arguing with you. He is arguing with the terrifying shadow of his own perceived inadequacy that you have just unintentionally held up a mirror to. The anger, the defensiveness, the withdrawal, these are not signs of a fragile ego in the colloquial sense, but the visible symptoms of a psychological immune system going into overdrive to reject a truth that feels too devastating to confront. It's the panic of the ego feeling itself coming undone. To truly understand why this concept of weakness lands with such devastating force, we have to look at the immense weight of history and expectation that a man often carries, often without even being fully aware of it. For centuries, across countless cultures, the definition of what it means to be a man has been forged in the fires of a few core principles: strength, stoicism, and the role of provider and protector. This isn't just a social expectation, it's an archetypal blueprint that lives deep in the collective unconscious. From a young age, many men are subtly and not so subtly taught that their value is intrinsically linked to their ability to be strong, to endure pain without complaint, to solve problems, and to shield others from hardship. To be perceived as weak, then, isn't just a minor critique. It feels like a fundamental failure to live up to the most basic mandate of masculinity itself. It's the ultimate fear of being deemed not enough and ultimately unworthy of respect or love. When this deeply ingrained identity is threatened, the psyche doesn't respond with reason, it responds with a survival instinct. The ego, whose entire job is to maintain a coherent sense of self, perceives this accusation of weakness as an existential threat. It's a direct challenge to its most cherished story. Since the idea of being weak is so utterly rejected, it's been cast into the shadow. The ego cannot integrate it because to do so would feel like self-annihilation. So instead, it mounts a defense. This is where we see those raw, instinctive reactions play out. Some men respond with anger and aggression, a classic fight response. This isn't just simple irritation, it's a desperate, often unconscious, attempt to reassert dominance and prove strength through force, to visibly demonstrate the very power that feels like it's being questioned. It's the ego's loudest possible protest against the accusation. Others retreat inwards, shutting down and withdrawing completely. This is the flight response applied to emotional danger. By stonewalling and building a wall of silence, they are attempting to retreat from the source of the pain and protect a fragile self that feels dangerously exposed. It's not that they don't care, it's that they care so much that the perceived failure is too crushing to articulate. Then there is deflection, the art of shifting the focus. By blaming external circumstances or another person, the ego cleverly avoids having to look inward at the painful feeling of inadequacy. It's a strategic maneuver to protect itself from a truth it is not yet equipped to handle. From a Jungian perspective, these intense reactions are a clear sign that a man has become completely identified with this archetype of strength. His strength isn't just a quality he possesses, it has become the entire foundation of his identity. His ego is fused with the strong man persona. So when that persona is challenged, it isn't just an attribute being critiqued. It feels like his entire being is under attack. There is no separation between "I did a weak thing" and "I am a weak person." The latter is so terrifying that the ego must reject the entire premise instantly and forcefully. The reaction is so powerful precisely because the sense of self is so fragile, built upon a single, narrow ideal that cannot acknowledge its own opposite without risking total collapse. The vulnerability he has been taught to exile becomes the very thing that, when triggered, holds the most power over him. We can talk about theory all day, but this dynamic truly comes to life in the everyday moments of our lives. It's in these situations that a simple comment, often meant with the best of intentions, can inadvertently land on that raw nerve, causing a reaction that seems outsized to the event itself. It's rarely about the surface-level words and almost always about the shadow meaning they trigger. Consider the landscape of a romantic relationship, which is often a primary ground for this kind of trigger. A partner might say, with genuine care, "Hey, can we talk about our feelings?" For her, this is an invitation to intimacy and connection, a desire to feel closer. But for a man whose identity is tightly wound up in being rational and in control, this simple question can be misinterpreted by his psyche as a devastating indictment. You are failing emotionally. You are not providing the emotional safety I need. You are inadequate in this core part of a relationship. Similarly, a request like, "I need you to help more around the house," which is fundamentally about sharing the load, can be filtered through this same deep-seated fear. Instead of hearing a practical need, he might hear, "You are not a good provider. You are not capable of managing your domain effectively. You are letting me down." The chore isn't the issue. The perceived attack on his competence and his ability to provide a well-run life is what sparks the defense. This doesn't just happen at home. It plays out just as powerfully in the world of work, a domain where many men feel their competence is constantly on the line. Professional feedback, which is essential for growth, can feel like a direct assault. A manager's well-meaning comment like, "That presentation could have been stronger," or "I need you to be more assertive in meetings," is designed to encourage development. But when heard by an ego that is identified with being capable and powerful, the translation can be brutal. You are not competent. You lack power. You are weak compared to your peers. The presentation is just the vehicle. The message felt is about a fundamental lack of strength, and the defensive response, arguing, making excuses, withdrawing from future projects, is an attempt to rebuild that shattered sense of capability. Even the casual, playful environment among friends isn't immune. Male banter often uses teasing as a form of bonding, but it can quickly touch a third rail. A comment from a friend like, "Wow, you really let her walk all over you," said with a nudge and a laugh, is rarely just a joke. It's a social check-in on status and strength. For the man on the receiving end, it can feel like a public challenge to his autonomy and power. It translates to, "Everyone can see you are not strong. You are being controlled. You are not the man you claim to be." This is why such comments can sometimes instantly deflate a mood or spark a defensive, even aggressive, retort. The friendship might be solid, but the trigger targets something deeper than the friendship, It targets the very persona he presents to his friends. In every case, the pattern is the same. The external event is a trigger precisely because it resonates with an internal, often unconscious, story of inadequacy. The reaction isn't really about the other person or even the specific words they used. It's a profound, automatic response to the terrifying feeling that a hidden part of oneself, a part deemed unacceptable and weak, is about to be exposed for the world to see. The ego, in a panic, jumps in to shut it down, to argue, to flee, or to deflect, all in a desperate bid to keep that shadow locked away and the identity of a strong, capable man intact. So where do we go from here? If this trigger is so powerful and automatic, is it just an inevitable part of interaction? The good news is, absolutely not. This understanding provides a map, not for walking on eggshells, but for building genuine connection and fostering real growth, both for men themselves and for the people who care about them. For any man recognizing these reactions in himself, the path forward isn't about trying to eradicate the feeling of weakness. That's a battle you cannot win, because it's a fundamental part of the human experience. The goal, as Carl Jung so powerfully advised, is integration. It's about gently and courageously bringing those disowned parts of yourself out of the shadows and making peace with them. It starts with a simple but profound acknowledgement. Everyone has vulnerability. Everyone feels insecure at times. Everyone has moments where they feel out of their depth. This isn't a failing, it's a sign of being human. True strength, the kind that is unshakable, isn't the brittle armor of never showing a crack. It's the resilience that comes from knowing your own cracks intimately and having the courage to acknowledge them and still act with integrity and purpose anyway. It's the difference between pretending you're not afraid and being brave despite the fear. This work is deeply personal. It involves turning toward the reaction instead of away from it. The next time a comment makes you bristle or want to shut down, try to pause and get curious. Ask yourself, why does this specific thing bother me so much? What story am I telling myself about what this means? Trace the feeling back. Does it remind you of a time you felt humiliated as a boy? Does it connect to a fear of not being enough for your family? This isn't about blaming the past, it's about understanding yourself in the present. This process of self-discovery and integration is what Jung called individuation, the journey toward becoming a whole, authentic person, not just a collection of masks. It's about building an identity that is so much broader and more resilient than the narrow ideal of the strong man, an identity that can hold both strength and vulnerability without falling apart. For partners, friends, and colleagues, this understanding is equally transformative. It offers a way to communicate that circumvents the defensive triggers and actually gets heard. The key often lies in shifting how needs and concerns are framed. Avoid language that frames the issue as a permanent character flaw, like, "you're so lazy," or "you never listen," which directly implies a fundamental weakness. Instead, focus on your own experience and frame it as a shared problem to be solved. Try something like, "I've been feeling really overwhelmed when the house is so messy. Could we tackle the living room together for 15 minutes? This approach doesn't attack his competence, it invites his capability. You can also powerfully frame requests around his strengths and a spirit of teamwork. A phrase like, "You're so much better at organizing than I am, could you help me figure out a system for the garage?" acknowledges his competence and makes him an ally, not a defendant. Most importantly, understanding that his defensiveness is most often a protection mechanism, a panicked response to a perceived threat, can change how you receive it. It allows you to see that the anger or withdrawal is rarely about you personally. It's about his own internal struggle. This doesn't mean tolerating bad behavior, but it does allow you to respond with less personal hurt and more clarity. You can learn to say, "It feels like we're getting defensive, and that's okay. I'm not attacking you. I'm on your team, and I just want to understand." This de-escalates the situation and gently guides the interaction away from the trigger and back toward connection. It's a practice of building bridges not to a persona, but to the whole, real person behind it. This is a conversation that truly thrives on shared experience. We've covered a lot of ground from a theoretical standpoint, but the real learning happens when we bring it down to earth. So I'm genuinely curious about your perspective. Have you witnessed this trigger in action, either in your own reactions or in someone else's? Maybe you've seen that sudden shift in energy when a particular nerve is touched. And do you agree that the concept of weakness is that central, primal trigger? Or have you found another word or idea that seems to have a similar power? Your stories and insights are what make this a dialogue, so please, share them in the comments below. Let's have a respectful and thoughtful discussion. We can all learn from each other's experiences. If this exploration into Jung's ideas resonated with you and added a new layer to your understanding of why we react the way we do, it would mean a lot if you'd hit the like button. It's a small way to let me know this content is valuable to you. And if you're interested in continuing this journey of understanding psychology, personality, and how to master your own mind, please consider subscribing to the channel. We're just scratching the surface. This deep dive into the ego and the shadow is actually a perfect lead-in to what we're exploring next. We're going to break down another one of Jung's most fascinating concepts, the anima and animus. This is the idea that each of us carries within us an inner feminine and an inner masculine, and understanding this dynamic is absolutely crucial for achieving psychological balance and deeper relationships. It's a powerful topic, and you won't want to miss it. To make sure you're notified the moment it drops, be sure to smash that notification bell. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.